I, Saucy, not Bossy.
Katie Radel, we've got you on. Welcome in, everybody. We are just meeting right now, Katie, and it's so funny because I just love for Saucy Not Bossy to be this conversation of people just coming in and listening and going, oh, it's like when you go on a walk and you're next to somebody and you're like, what's that conversation they're having over there? Like, I want to stop and hear what these strangers are saying. So maybe people will resonate with us today. But welcome in, Katie.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Yay, me too. And we're just meeting. And then right before we jumped in here, we were just talking about what are we talking about today? What our theme is, because you are such a colorful person. You have so many things in your life going on. But what we're going to talk today, because I'm in the middle of grieving my mom. Like, I don't know what exactly, this is what we're going to talk about today. Am I in the middle? Am I in the beginning of grieving? How long is grieving? Is it forever? Like, I don't know how to grieve. I don't know what this process is because this is the first true big loss of my life.
Right.
And so I'm excited to talk to you today because I feel like you've had a lot of loss in your life and you see things from a different perspective. So I would just love to hear about you, Katie.
Sure. Well, my fun fact at any networking event, they say say a fun fact and it'll break the ice. And usually I don't have a problem breaking the ice because I'm very extroverted. But my fun fact I always say is, well, I lived in a funeral home and I grew up in a funeral home and I worked for my dad when I was 16. And then I go on to say, and when I could drive at 16, not my primary car, but I was driving a hearse and I was helping out at the family funeral home. And that usually gets two different reactions. The first reaction is, oh, that's interesting. And then people kind of clam up and change the subject really quick. Or,
Really?
yes, because, and I'm sure we'll talk all about this today, but our society doesn't love to talk about death or grief, unfortunately. And I would love to change that narrative in my own way. Or the second reaction is, like Veda from My Girl? I'm like, yes. And they're like, that is so cool. Tell me more. And so it's just been an interesting experiment that I've been running for many, many years as I've been out in the world networking and going to all these events. It's always so interesting to me to kind of test people and see where we land. So I did grow up in a funeral home, and fast forward to now in my life, in my mid 40s, I have had several experiences along the way as an adult in which I can look back and with so much gratitude, think back to my time in the funeral home and being surrounded by the fragility of life. And now in my life, I'm learning that death has been my greatest teacher. And I'm learning how to make better decisions and live better because of it.
Okay. I love this. So circle back. Did one day at 6, your dad's like, I'm going to start a funeral home. Let's start from the beginning.
Right.
And then why were you 16 when this all started? I have so many
Sure.
questions. Yeah.
So it's actually still going strong, and it is a third generation funeral home. And so it was started by my great grandfather. My father still is running it. And when I was 16 and I could work, I was working for my dad in the summers before school would start. And again, when I was 16, it was such a pivotal time because I was able to drive. And I had a driver's license. And it's like, well, now you can drive. So I need you to do these very odd jobs, which included washing the hearse, driving the hearse, for several different reasons. And I also lived at the time above the funeral home with my dad and my brother. And so I guess 16 was like the magical number for me. There was a lot going on, but we lived above it because back in the day, funeral homes were designed. It was a very old building. It is a very old building. Funeral homes were designed for the owners, the families, to live above the funeral home. And the funeral home has like this beautiful apartment. And so we lived above it. And not only did I work there, but I mean, I lived there. And so going downstairs, you would pass the office and you would smell lilies and coffee. And, sometimes people would be there on the weekends or at night for visitations or funerals. And I just kind of grew up in that environment and it was very normalized.
Did you feel like you had to be on? I grew up in LA and I felt like I had to leave the house sometimes and be on with there was gifts of celebrity and chaos. And then you
Right.
had live a living environment of living
Hmm.
upstairs and then coming down.
Hmm.
Did you feel like you had to be on when you came down and say hi to people, or did you feel like you had to match their tone of
Hmm.
grief ever?
So thankfully there was like an escape door, if you will. So you never really had to be faced with the grievers or the visitors for the visitation. But working those funerals and visitations, you absolutely have to be on. And my nature is to be extroverted, bubbly, outgoing. I laugh a lot. I find humor in so many different things. And when you're in that environment, yeah, you do. I mean, you have to check yourself. You have to tone it down. You have to match the room. You have to read the room. And actually, I think that was a critical skill I picked up at an early age because now in my adult life, I work a lot with executives and I work in these industries that are can be pretty serious. A lot of my clients are in healthcare, and so I learned that at a really early age to kind of read the room, match your energy to the room, but also, never lose sight of your authenticity and your smile because I think I learned that that's what I bring to the table is my warmth and my authenticity, and that's comforting to people.
Yes, I love that. Let me ask you a question. So was your dad the way, if he's dealing with a lot of death, there's a lot of empathy because
Hmm.
I didn't realize I had to say goodbye to my mom and then I went to the morgue and I had to do the viewing and see her. But the man that ran the morgue, he was the most loving, sweetest, kindest. And I just had this perspective of like before I went through all this that they're just cold
Hmm.
and they're just distant. But that wasn't my experience. Now, as a
Right.
dad, was your dad a loving because he sees so much death, right? So you
Hmm.
can either get really shut off with those people of conversations when you bring up that you were raised in a funeral
Sure.
home, but you shut off because they don't want to have the uncomfortable
Hmm.
conversation. Or was your dad like when you got hurt and you weren't feeling good, was he
Hmm.
very nurturing or was he very like, okay, you'll be fine. Let's just, get you this, get you that. How did you get your warmth of sorts?
The surprising thing about my dad, who has been, a lifelong funeral director in the industry. I mean, he was around the industry when he was a child. He's one of the funniest humans I know. And he has this contagious laugh and he has a habit of laughing at himself. And people love that. It draws people in. Maybe I learned it from him. He has definitely learned how to tone it down, I guess. And again, match the room, match the energy. But the surprising thing is that he is one of the funniest humans. And so I think what was modeled to me is like you can have a profession in this really, really sad world and in this industry and actually live there as well. But you're also a human being. You can laugh, and that's okay. And if anything, which is so interesting, is that there's more exuberance and it's almost like we've been taught because we're surrounded in that environment to live a little better and to laugh a little harder and to love a little more. I just think of when I think of my dad, I think of someone who is hilarious and has this great sense of humor, but can also be there for families and be empathetic.
That's wonderful. So, people look at death as scary, a lot of people. They don't wanna have the
Hmm.
deep conversations. What do you think it is about us? And I wanna go into the grieving because I have to tell you something really quick. I do a lot of things on my own because I wasn't raised with a father that was as kind as yours, and I had to do things to make sure they got done because I couldn't rely on other people. So my cousin set up this meal train when my mom passed, right? And it's a beautiful thing where you have to accept people's love and you have to accept all of this as it comes to the door and meals are coming. But I have issues with that because I'm like, don't do too much for me. It's okay. I'll take care of myself. But I'll never forget there was one person that signed up for the meal train and it was between, 4:30 and 6 and my kids are there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust that they're going to come with the meal train. And they ditched us completely. There was no meal that came. So there was so much laugh in that because they forgot. I'm like, I have to trust during this grieving process. And it sounds so daft. It sounds so silly with the food not coming, but it was something funny in the way of what is all this? What is all this? The grieving,
Well, and what are the rituals that we're taught we're supposed to do when someone we know loses someone? What are those rituals? So it's a meal train. It's send a sympathy card. It's send flowers. It's, hopefully send a text, call, visit, make a casserole, that kind of thing. And we're taught that. The good news is that I think that is ingrained in our society. I live in the South, and I know that's true in the South. And I grew up in the Midwest. So both areas are very much like, here's the protocol. As an American, here's the protocol. But there's a but there. When you're in it and when that actually happens to you, those protocols are foundational and they're like, I think they're designed to help you survive that time. You can't cook. I laugh about this and it's so true. Like when I'm making a meal or thinking about a meal train for someone who has just lost someone, the last thing I want to do is give them a salad because like no one wants a salad. No one wants a salad. They want a chicken pot pie. They want noodles and they want carbohydrates and like good, yummy comfort food. But again, the meal train and the visiting and all of that is a protocol. And I think those protocols are in place so we can actually wake up in the morning and we can simply put something in the microwave. We have beautiful flowers, their smell and their beauty to remind us that people love us and care about us. And like, how amazing is it to walk into your dining room and see, 5 vases of flowers because it meant that someone cared enough to do that. But what happens 2 months later? We're not getting a meal train. We're not getting a casserole. We're not getting flowers. We are left to figure this thing out. And there is no playbook. It's fortunate if you do have people in your life who have experienced a great loss because they get it more. And you can't really understand it until you've been in it. But it's about paying it forward and showing those kindnesses months later, a year later. Hey, I know today might be hard for you on the anniversary of your mom or dad's passing. It's just thinking of you, right? It's those kind of little things, little touch points along the way, well after those casseroles stop coming, that I find are so important so people know that you're not forgotten and that your loved one isn't forgotten either.
I love that. Now, how do you do this with certain people? You just go with your instinct because there's certain people when they lose somebody, I want to show up to their door. Like all these people came, they put the so funny. They put the food on my front porch and I was like, wait, I wanted to run after them and give them a hug, right? I wanted to be like, thank you. But I guess people just don't want to. I'm the kind of person, Italian, where I'm like, I'm going to come in. I want to give hugs and but some ready for that. So from your experience, how do you match that tone? Like if it's a very good friend, you know that you navigate that. But for people that you care about that maybe you're not as close to, and people are just scared in general to even do anything. So like where do you start?
My rule of thumb, personally, is you can never lose by being good or kind. You can never lose. You can never lose by showing up, but you also do have to read the room. You have to know the person. And if you don't know, right? I mean, it's all about reading the room and knowing your audience, but it's about knowing that person too. And if we're very close, I know that you want me to come in and I know that you want to hug and I know that you might want to laugh. So I'll send you a funny meme.
One. Yeah.
But if it's not that kind of relationship, send something, drop something off, send a funny card,
A
send a
funny
text
card.
message.
I like the funny card.
I like the
Okay.
funny card too. Because just because we've lost someone doesn't mean that we still don't have a sense of humor, right? And it's just being thoughtful and kind and thinking through, if it were me, what would I want? And again, like maybe I'm wrong with the salad thing, but the last thing I would want is a salad.
Right.
So it's about meeting people where they are as well and never apologizing for it. I think I would err on the side of being good and kind than not doing anything.
I love that. Even just simple, like, yeah, leaving a card at the door, sending a card, because that was some of the most beautiful things I got. Like everything. Just and then it just made me be able to grieve more because these people are doing this because they love or they didn't even know my mom, but they care about me. So like just simple little things went such a long way. So that's such a great point. Now, let me ask you another question. When you're 16, seeing death and living above, a funeral home, did it change your perspective of what you wanted to do with your life while all the other kids maybe are just like not even making their bed, right? And just like,
Right.
nah, it's so rude. And like I don't know,
Right.
like you're being nice, just being angry with Alanis Morissette. But
Oh,
I
I
don't know.
was, right? Like I
Okay.
experienced that too. But at that age, you're not thinking about what you want to do the rest of your life or how to live better as a human being. Really, it was so normalized for me. It was like it just so happened to be the place that I lived. And yes, it was a bit unusual. It's not like I, had friends over all the time to play dates above the funeral home, but I would have friends come over. And even after college, I lived above the funeral home by myself for a year. And so, I'd have friends over and it was such a beautiful space and very quiet, very peaceful that you really didn't know what kind of environment you were in. It was so normalized to me at that age. And it wasn't until I was, gosh, in my late 30s maybe, that I really started to dig deep and understand how growing up in that environment affected me as a human being. And I started to recall all of these memories and the funerals that I had been to, and just the gravity of being surrounded by that on a daily basis, because I lived there. Um, didn't really hit me until my late 30s when I was kind of going through who do I want to be when I grow up and, the midlife crisis stuff people go through. And I was thinking to myself, how do I want to feel every day? How do I want to treat others? How do I want to show up in my body? What kind of human do I want to be every day? At the time, I had just had a baby. When you're surrounded by death all the time, you read obituaries and you read those paragraphs and you're like, what is the legacy here? Some obituaries are written like, this person was the kindest person ever. And it never really talks so much about, you know, so and so got promoted to VP level at age 30. Nobody cares, right? And I started really thinking about that and who I wanted to be when I grow up. And I'm still working on that, to be honest. I think we all are. But I made some pretty big changes in my life. I left the corporate world. I started my own business. I started being really, really intentional about my relationships and what mattered most. And I made some pretty big changes just based on the fact of like, you've been to so many funerals and have witnessed, death in so many different ways, personally and for people you don't even know. So, like, I felt this huge sense of responsibility and accountability. If those people couldn't do better, or live better, or have better experiences, I could. And I'm still trying to do that every day. I'm still trying to show up every day in those relationships, in my life, with my business, with my family, intentionally looking for ways to leave a legacy. And it's been hard work. But once I kind of figured that out and remembered all of the, death that I had been surrounded by, I'm like, well, you better live better now. And that's on you.
So what's the first thing when you had that moment? Did you just get rid of people in your life that were bringing you down? Did you take a trip? Did you hug your child harder?
Mhm.
What are the steps that you like little few steps that you took to start?
The biggest one was leaving the corporate world because it was no longer serving me. I didn't like how I was showing up in that space. And so eventually I started my own business. That was a big one. Um, I remember a time when my son was really young and I was still in that corporate space and I was really miserable and really going through it. And it dawned on me, and I might start crying any minute now, just remembering this, but I remember he was so little and I wasn't home. Like I wasn't there. I wasn't present. I was home, but I wasn't. And to be fair, at the time, you're really, really busy trying to like get dinner on the table and do baths and all of the things that come along with parenting, but I wasn't there. And I remember realizing that I hadn't taken the time to smell his head, which
Oh,
sounds so strange. But
no.
boy, if you're a parent and you have a little one, the sweetest smell in the entire world is their head
Mm.
and just loving on them. And I couldn't recall doing that in a long time or really being there and being present. And that was on me. And I had to make a change. And I like to credit death with, as strange as it sounds, I had to credit death with that.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the beauty that you see in death? There was some beautiful moments, like when my mom did pass and I gave her a lavender bath and it was
Mm,
it was so hard, but it was so she was she was free. Like she had
yeah.
Alzheimer's, so her mind, her body, and
Mm,
now I can speak to her. She was physically here, but not mentally. I couldn't speak to her because she was trapped in that body. But
hmm.
now I can. Now I'm more present for my children. And it's the same. It's like, oh, sniff your little
Yeah.
kid's head or they're taller than you and you can't reach
Right.
their end.
And they won't let you. They won't let
Yeah,
you sniff their head.
I love that. So that's so beautiful that it made you more present with your son. A lot of people have this misconception of
Mhm.
it's so grim, it's so ugly, but there's so much beauty to it.
In my experience, and I've been in those rooms, not only with my mom, but with friends. And when I say that room, I call it the death room.
Mm.
The room where death happens, but there's also a lot of life in there too. And the beauty that I have witnessed in love and peace and being pain free, um, with gosh, the hospice nurses are just, but I mean,
Oh,
there are
I,
no words for what they do every day.
wow.
Um, Witnessing that and being in that room with someone that you love and letting them pass and giving them permission to. I thought that was really important to give her permission to go. It was truly the biggest honor of my entire life. What makes me so grateful and so sad at the same time is that I did have that opportunity, but the sadness is thinking of all the people that didn't have that opportunity to say goodbye, to be in that room, that sacred room where somehow everyone comes together, whether it's, clinical staff or family members, loved ones, they all kind of come together in this knowing and understanding that we're ushering someone away, not for the bad, but for the good. Is the most powerful experience, and I'll never forget it. So I've seen so much beauty and love, and a lot of people say even after death, you can still have a relationship with your loved one, and I believe that to be true. I've experienced so many different winks, I guess you could call them, memories. Some people call them signs that she's still around, that my, friends that I've lost are still around. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, based on my experience and just based on my own knowing, that there's more. And I think when you can kind of sit in that and be comfortable with that, it makes life better, but it also makes it a lot less scary. Maybe not something to look forward to because we're also saying goodbye to the people that are still here, but it demystifies it and takes away what we are taught is such a scary thing. And what we are taught, don't talk about that because if you talk about it, it might come true. Well, the truth is it's coming true for all of us, which is so wild to me that our society still isn't great about talking about it. Or, people aren't great about setting up wills and trusts and, getting affairs in order, if you will, because they just don't want to admit that like we're all headed to the same space. And I think once people can get their mind around that a little bit and talk about it more, the mystery is a lot less scary.
So when you said, to bring it back to the beginning of our conversation, when you said you go into a room and the people that shut down and don't, like, they're just like, oh, and then the people that want to
hmm
ask more questions,
hmm
who do you become more connected to? And it
I
makes you,
mean, of course, the people who want to know more, because I'm like, this is a pun, but I'm like dying to tell them. I'm like dying to tell them what I know and like how cool this was to grow up this way. And like, just maybe rub off on other people that like we can talk about this stuff and it's not totally scary. And actually, it can be funny at times. And, what do you want? Do you want to have a traditional burial? Do you want to be cremated? Like, what does that look like? And, it's just a good exercise to talk about it.
I love it. It helps weed out the people that you're not sure if you can connect with them and then how they respond.
Right.
It's a great way to do that. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. But it's different. It's like I feel like whoever you are growing up with, that's what matters. Like I grew up with kids that had $10 billion houses. Their parents were never there. They had a
hmm
wing of the house and they thought that was normal, And then I grew up in
hmm
like a smaller house where my mom's like, no, we fight it all out in the middle of the living room. We don't just go to wings and be separate, no matter how much
Right.
money anybody has, you work it out.
hmm
So it's kind of beautiful where people get shocked by, oh, a funeral home, but you're like, no, it was your dad that normalized it, made it beautiful up there, as opposed to
hmm
like you live in a mansion and you're just miserable. It seems
hmm
more normal in a funeral home. You said everything about death made you feel like you wanted to be more present. So how has it
hmm
served you now? Tell me more about your business and what you're doing with your life now and how it serves you and other people.
Sure. So I have always been in the marketing or PR space throughout my entire career. I've mostly worked for large organizations with a lot of executives, doing a lot of, event planning, things like that. And, no one's surprised about my personality that's the career path I took. But, I did it for so long and I was in the corporate world and I just realized like I was climbing because I thought I should climb and I was climbing well until it didn't feel good. And so I made that choice to walk away from the corporate world and I started a PR firm about 6 months or so before the pandemic, which
Oh,
was
wow.
really terrible timing. But
Wow.
really, I mean, looking back, it was the biggest gift because it helped me take time. The pandemic hit and I was devastated obviously for so many reasons, but because I had just started this business and I thought, well, surely this is going to take me out right away. Well, I stuck with it, was more present, COVID happened and lots more time with family. And it also accidentally made me pause. And it also accidentally made me do a lot of work, a lot of internal work that I really, really needed. Didn't realize I needed it until I started doing a lot of that internal work and going to therapy and going for long walks because we had nothing but time at that time, right? Um, I had to do a lot of work on me. And I had to unwind a lot of the lies that I was telling myself while I was in that corporate world on that trajectory. And I'm so grateful for that time. Although it was a struggle business wise, I came out on the other side. So I've been at it for 6 years now. And what I do now is instead of general PR marketing, we specialize in executive visibility. So we work directly with executives to raise their profile, their brand, to get them out there into the world and be seen by the audiences who need to see them. And I love PR. It's so fun for me. I started my business because I'm really good at it. But right now I'm in a phase where like I need to let go to scale. So I'm working really hard on that. But also, I continue my journey of personal growth and development because I don't think that's ever going to be over. And what that looks like for me is making sure that I'm doing all I can to take care of myself and my family. I do lots of yoga, lots of therapy, lots of walks, and just anything I can do to make myself be better makes my business better too. Makes me a better leader, makes me um, better at sales and trying to grow this company. And it's been a journey. It hasn't been easy by any means, but I've learned that if I'm not right with me, nothing else is.
Love that.
So that's a big focus for me now.
That's huge. How many kids do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
Just one.
Okay, so how do
Mhm.
you raise a child as a woman in the corporate world? Like I'm so fascinated by it. I know you're not in it anymore, but like when you were in it
Mhm.
with a baby, right? Were you pregnant or yet,
I
right?
was pregnant, had a baby, and I went back from maternity leave, and I was like, this isn't gonna work.
How do you, how
This
do
is
you do
not
it? Yeah,
not gonna work.
how did you even attempt? Like, where is the village?
Mm.
Like, I don't know
Mhm.
how women do it. You don't do it all, right? You can't do
You
it all.
don't. That's the answer. And it's not a great one, but you don't. And that's the truth.
It is a great one, actually. It's a great conversation to have because nobody wants to talk about it, and you do have to sacrifice.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt you, but the Oprahs of the
No, it's
world
fine.
chose not to have kids. There's a reason, right? And
Mhm.
I respect that a lot. And then you have Martha Stewart who's saying, I had to sacrifice a lot. My daughter and I didn't get along for a very long
Yeah.
time. We weren't very good. So,
Mhm.
sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
No, it's fine. The truthful answer is you can't. Meaning you can't do one thing well. It's impossible. And I'm not the only one saying this, right? It is absolutely impossible to be 100% at your career and then come home and be 100% at home. It's just that it doesn't work. And I think I realized that, but also for me, it was more of like, I just don't like this anymore. I can do this and I have figured it out somehow at a huge cost. I mean, I wasn't being present, of course. And like, it just, my priorities were all messed up, but I just didn't want to be that person anymore. And it wasn't working for me. And so many women I know do it and they do it and they do it well. And they do it because it's important to them and everybody has their own path. But for me personally, I was like, I don't like who I am. And if I don't like who I am, I'm not going to be the best mom. And if I don't like who I am, I'm not going to be the best employee, or wife or friend or whatever it is. I had recalled all of those funerals and I was chasing like the really fancy car because that would mean that I had made it, or the house or the whatever thing. And I realized during that time of like discovery that never once was, anyone buried in a fancy car. They weren't. And so what does that look like? For me, it wasn't working anymore in so many different ways. Pretty hard pivot after being in the corporate world, 40 years old at the time. And it was hard. It was hard to do that, but I'm so grateful that I did.
You're so right though. Like when you die, you're not like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that Maserati I got
Right.
and that $1 million house. You look around and you think, who's
Hmm.
around, who's surrounding
Right.
me? After everything we witnessed, what is the most life? Oh, this is my two big saucy. And this is why I called this saucy, not bossy, because it's kind of like in the corporate world, there's a lot of women that want to be boss bitches. And I'm like, nobody wants a
Yeah.
boss. Like, nobody, I don't like that mentality.
I
People
don't
can
either.
have, but it's like you have your sauce of like going to therapy, figuring it out, being the strong, independent woman, and then having
Mhm,
your own business, and then even scaling down your own business to be more present.
mhm,
I love that where I love what you said. You're like, I'm really good at this. And I think people need to take a note from your book where it's like, know that you're really good at something
mhm.
and then just be great at who you're great with, as opposed to bringing on a million people or doing a
Right.
million things and being mediocre with all because you like being a mom and running your own business was probably much more satisfying than being in the corporate world and being a
Mhm.
mom. Am I wrong?
Right.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And for me, freedom was a big thing. Freedom of my day, working that yoga in or whatever it is, or a walk when it's a beautiful day, or a walk the dog. Little things like that. I remember being in the corporate world thinking, ugh, it's 80 degrees and sunny outside, and it sucks that I am at this cube. It's awful. There's fluorescent lighting, and I don't like it. And all I want to do is just walk around the block. It's not asking much.
Jail.
And
Yeah.
I've I've realized that so much of being an entrepreneur and having my own business is the choice. Is the choice of freedom, first of all, but also the choice of like, who do I get to work with? Whether they're clients or people who work with me. Um, how do I want to serve? I mean, serving has always been a really big part of my business. Although it's not really related to PR, I serve on boards, and that's really, really important to me to give back to the community. One of the boards I serve on is actually a natural burial nonprofit. Go figure.
That's cool.
Um, so that's really important, but I have the freedom to choose how I spend my time.
Yeah.
And it can be challenging at times because there's no one to tell you like do this thing or, hit these numbers. It's me in the driver's seat, which can be challenging at times. But, I've also learned to bring in people who support me. And I've hired business coaches and I have mentors and I've been really good, thankfully, at surrounding myself with the people I need to surround myself with to succeed.
That's great. Wait, tell me more about the natural burial. I'm gonna get cremated personally,
Yep.
but like my mom bought her plot in Santa Monica like 30 something years ago. And she would
Yeah.
drive by before she died and was like, this is my, she was so proud because now you
Oh,
can't even get it. Like
right.
it was like the best, it was the best real estate she ever bought in her life. I
Right.
swear. And
Isn't
she's so,
that wild to think about that?
it's
Yeah.
wild. So,
Mhm.
and then I think, okay, there's caskets. Everyone has it, but she
Sure.
wanted the casket. I get it in the ground. And I'm like, but what are we doing here? So tell me more about the natural
Sure.
burial that you're on. Yeah.
So I had never heard of this. Growing up the way I did, it was always traditional funeral with a casket, embalming, or cremation. That was it. That's what I knew. And gosh, a few years ago, I was introduced to this organization. I watched a documentary. It was so random how I learned about them. But the documentary was about the founding of the organization. It is to this day, it is the only natural burial organization in Tennessee where I live. And watching this documentary, it was about how they decided as a group to do this thing and how they got permission to do it, which is not an easy thing. Um, and they acquired the land that was donated and all of these things. It was amazing, kind of the journey of the why. And really the why was about doing it differently and honoring people in a different way and not using caskets or vaults, embalming, even cremation, although you can be buried cremains can be buried at this place. It's all natural. So wicker caskets and literally returning to the earth. Everything that you're buried with, it has to be biodegradable. And even the headstone marker comes from the actual land right around there, which is amazing. And so when I found out about it, I'm like, okay, I need to be a part of that somehow. And I wrote them an email, and I was actually crying at the time. I mean, and I put that in my email. I was like, I am sobbing after watching the documentary. What you do is so amazing. I want to be a part of this. And I've been on the board ever since, which has been amazing. It's this gorgeous place in the country. And you meaning the family walks in a procession up this hill, and everyone is in hiking boots and jeans and very casual clothes. And you walk up the hill and you get to this gorgeous, huge meadow, the most beautiful meadow you've ever seen. And the family is invited to participate in the funeral if they choose. And it is the most respectful, serene way to honor someone that I've ever seen. And it's really cool that it's right here, not far from where I live in Tennessee.
What's the name of it?
Larkspur Conservation.
Why don't more people do that? Do they just feel like they want to go and have a tombstone and, the tradition of visiting? But is there, once it all biodegrades, is there just trees that are built? Can kids play on that? How does that work
Sure.
there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a long time ago, actually not terribly long ago, that was the practice. There were family cemeteries and yards at farms, and the body goes back to the earth. And that could look like, a tree being planted there, flowers being planted there, being part of nature. And to answer your question of, why don't people choose this? I think people are more educated about their options now. There's a lot more options now other than just your traditional burial and cremation. It's education, it's time. It takes a lot of time for people to get comfortable with a different idea. And, a lot of people are so traditional. It's like, well, grandma was buried at this funeral home, through this funeral home and at the cemetery, so that's what I'm going to do too. Or I already brought the plot, and so that's where I'm going, and I've already made up my mind, and I'm not going to go back because I've already paid for it, which is absolutely fine. There's a place for all of this.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way. It's really what you want. But I thought it was amazing that this option was available to people. And going back to that, fun fact conversation, I also like to plug Larkspur whenever I can when I'm meeting people, and they look at me and they're like, oh, I want to be buried there. And these are people who are like my age.
Yeah.
In their 40s, which is so cool. And I feel like death and grief is kind of having a moment where more people are talking about it, and you can just kind of feel that more conversations are being had and people are just starting to be more comfortable with it. It's called death positivity, which sounds maybe strange, but what that means is being more comfortable with death, having conversations about it. There are death cafes that are popping up all over the place, which is so interesting.
Wait. What
yeah.
is that? What is
So
that?
a death cafe is, let's say, someone, it could be me, it could be anybody. Anybody could say, hey, coffee shop up the street, I want to host a death cafe. And if the coffee shop or wherever you're going to meet agrees, some people do it in a brewery, which is really fun. It's a meetup. And the idea is you meet somewhere in a coffee shop, wherever, and you talk about death. It's called a death cafe. And there's a lot of these death cafes all over.
Is it because you're in the middle of grieving, or you think that you are going to die, or it's just like you're curious?
Anybody can come. Maybe they've experienced a loss recently and they're like, what is this world that I'm in all of a sudden? I want to be around other people. Because it's like, unfortunately, all of a sudden you're in this club that is not a great club to be in.
Yeah.
It could be people who are curious about death, who want to do death differently or talk about death differently, who want to be more prepared about death. And so really it's, anyone can host these death cafes. And I think it's awesome. I
Yeah.
think it's amazing. I actually, not long ago went to, what was it called? It was called Dying to Discuss. That's what it was called. And a friend of mine put it on, and she is a death doula.
Okay. Wow.
And she's a death doula, and she volunteers at the local hospice, and there's this whole community that she has. And she put this event on, and I went because I mean, I couldn't not
I would.
go.
Yeah.
And basically, it was a lovely dinner, and we were given kind of topics in a bowl. And you sit around with total strangers, and you switch halfway through, and you pull out these little questions. And the questions are like, what do you want your legacy to be? Which is a big one. Or like, what do you want your funeral to be like? Or is there a particular song you want played at your funeral? So it's being curious and safe at the same time, and allowing for that, allowing a safe place to be curious about death and to talk about it. And it was really cool. It was really neat to be a part of that.
And some people can obsess about it, but it seems like
Mhm.
you have a balance with it because my mom with Alzheimer's, when she got it, she's like, "We'll figure it out." And I'm like, "No, no,
Mm.
I wish I could have gone back and been like, no, no, let's go to this dying to discuss. Let's have
Mhm.
these conversations because it's beautiful for everybody to have it. It's clear. You get to make a
Mhm.
choice, write it down, figure it out before it all, you lose your mind or you get a car accident, God forbid, and
Right.
nobody knows what to do because death is not for the living. Let me tell you. You know what I mean? Like,
Gosh,
once
it's
you're gone, other people have to pick up all of.
ab- absolutely. And one of my favorite, people to quote is Brene Brown. And she says, clear is kind. And I think about that for so many different purposes. And death is one of them. And so clear is kind is be clear about your wishes. Be clear about your will and, your estate and your trust. So after the fact, your loved ones aren't left. They're already left in this terrible space, right? The aftermath. Not only are they left grieving their loved one, but now they have to pick up the pieces of where's the key to this thing and who's going to get mom's piano. Right? I mean, it's so many layers, and it can cause so much stress on a family that is already in stress. And so I like to think of that as clear as kind and be clear about your wishes and let people know about that.
I love it. I love you. You're like, death is having a moment. And I am going to look up these dying to talk. I think this is great, whether you can jump
Mhm.
on virtually with a group and
Yeah.
have dinner, whatever it is. I love that. I'm gonna start looking into it. I have one last question for
Mhm.
you, and I thank you so much for coming. Like it's just so great to get your wisdom. I love it. It's just your life. It's your sauce. It's what you've lived for so long, as opposed to being like, I've been around death. It's awful. I'm just gonna die. I hear all these people all the time that are just like, well, I'm just gonna die. I'm gonna die. And I'm like, no, you need to live, right? It's like,
Yeah.
but what do you hope, people
Mm.
understand differently about grief after our conversation?
It doesn't end.
Huh. Yeah, it makes me sad. True.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that sounds so hard. And it is.
It is
It
hard.
is it is
It's a
so hard. It is so hard. I don't want to say but. I will say and
However, yeah.
it changes. It morphs. It gets lighter and easier. And then the next day it might. And there is so much love and beauty in it. I recently had to say goodbye to my 15-year-old pit bull.
Oh,
She was
no.
I mean, I know. She
Oh,
was my soul dog. And it's still, it just, it tears me up. But what brought me peace and comfort and to say out loud, grief is love. And I don't like when people say grief is love with nowhere to go. There's a lot.
What do you
When people
mean?
say that all the time, I'm like, okay, but there is a way, there is places for it to go.
There is. What
There
is
is
that?
places for it to go.
Yeah, what is that? I don't get it. Yeah.
It is the presence of love for that person, and that brings me comfort. Or animal, if you will.
Yeah.
But you're forever changed. Grief changes you on a soul level. And it is hard, it is lovely, it is life-changing if you let it. And it is an experience that we all have to go through, 100% of us. 100% of us. And if we could all be a little bit more compassionate and empathetic about this club that we're all a part of, I think the world would be a better place.
That is quite beautiful, Katie. Thank you. Thank you. Didn't realize I was going to cry, but that's what great conversation and honest conversation does. So, thank you for that. And one last thing too, doggies are our people, and it's so hard because I lost my Frenchie of 13 years, and it's like because that there's a defined time with animals, right?
Right.
Like, it's different, but when you lose your baby, your four-legged baby, you lose all the people too. And I feel like I had to relive all the people I lost during the time of my little man. You know what I mean? All the experiences. And so everyone out there, that's a real death too. People are like, oh,
Right.
it's just a dog. It's like, no, it was not. That was my little man. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard, it's in that anticipatory grief piece of it of like, okay, I have a Frenchie and the Frenchie is 13. And so the math, and for me, I'm like, this 55-pound pit bull is 15. I used to call her the wonder dog, right? Because she just, I knew. I mean, we know, and we signed up for that.
I know we do.
We sign up for it.
I know.
And you're like, but the ending here. And I've thought a lot about that lately. And I'm like, all of that awfulness and ugliness and sadness and grief that I experienced and I'm still experiencing, again, because it doesn't end, it gets lighter and better. I would do it again.
Yeah.
I would do it again. When the time is right. Right? Like when we always say, like, when our hearts have healed. And I don't know if my heart will ever heal from that, but it's having the capacity to sign up for that again. Because the joy and the love, the unconditional love, to me, far outweigh the terrible time with the grief and the loss.
And that is perfect to say to any human that doesn't want to connect again with other people because they've lost a best friend or the husband or a child, God forbid.
Yeah.
It's like, just be open to loving again. Yeah, that's beautiful.
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah, we're not over. Yeah, tell me. Ask me.
What, and I love to ask this question,
Oh, I love it.
What was the kindest thing someone did after your mom passed?
That's a great question. There was just so much of it. I think I wasn't expecting any of it, to be honest. I think, what I think the kindest thing was the notes that I got saying, I didn't know your mom, but knowing you, I can imagine what a great person she was. So I think me living the legacy that I am and taking her with me and people seeing me and not knowing her would make her really proud. It was really kind. So that was a great question. I'll be on your podcast next. That was a great question. What was the kindest thing someone did for you when you lost your mom?
Hmm. Ooh, we didn't cover this, but and I don't really want to cover it. But ugh, unfortunately, when my mom died, I was able to go home to Cincinnati to be in that room with her. I had one foot out the door of my first marriage. And in that room, I maybe not then and there, but it was a strong urge and push to be like, yeah, you need to go home and you probably need to file for divorce because life is too short. And I was only 31 at the time, and
Oh, wow.
like I have this whole life to live. And my mom can't live anymore, but guess who can? I can. So I had left my home in Nashville with my soon to be ex-husband or whatever. It was a mess. It was such a mess. And one of my girlfriends, who was a neighbor at the time, and you know what? I need to reach out to her and thank her again for this. I left very quickly to like go up there and like do the funeral and everything. And it was awful. House is a wreck, right? Like you're not thinking about groceries or cleaning the damn floor, anything like that, right? At that time, or having a salad. I came home after, I don't know what it was. It was a whole week of she passed and then the funeral and all of it. I came home to a clean house.
Yeah. Yeah.
She came in and she cleaned my entire house and she did my laundry.
People wouldn't get mad at that because I want to do that for somebody. Like you didn't get, you loved that.
She even
I
folded
would,
my underwear.
well,
And I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, that was the kindest thing someone could do because when I walked into that house, I didn't have 20 other things I needed to get to at the time.
yeah.
Right? I mean, that was one less thing my brain had to figure out. And, there was also, I was thinking about just this morning, there was a woman I worked with way before who I hadn't seen in a long time. And she found out my mom had died and she found my address and she sent me a card. And it was so kind. And it was like, Katie, I'm so sorry. And I'm thinking about you. I know this is so hard. And you know what? It was just, a normal card, seemingly normal card. I have never forgotten that card. And that was many years ago.
Mm.
I just thought of that woman this morning because I'm going to go to an event later this afternoon. And and I know she's going to be there. When I see her, I'm going to tell her that
No, I love that.
and say, I will never forget you sent me that card. And it's just those little things that really propel you forward, like you said.
Yeah.
You're not only surviving, but like those kindnesses, they help.
Yeah.
They all
Help.
matter,
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
people get it wrong, sometimes they do. They mean well.
I agree. Cause you know what? I swear to God, I would like now that I've gone through it, I will go and I am that woman that will go into
Yeah.
someone's house, clean up because that's what I like
Yep.
to do. I've always questioned myself with that, but now I'm like, I could get it wrong. But you know what? Clear is kind, and
Yep.
what did you say about kindness? Just take the kind road. What did you say?
You know what? Like I try even in life and in business too. Like I try so hard to do what like I always ask myself, what is the good and kind thing to do here? What is good and kind, period? And if you can make decisions based on that, obviously with boundaries, that's what therapy's for. But but it's like if you can err on the side of good and kind, you can never lose at being loving or kind or good.
I love it.
Period. In
Period.
life, I think. I hope.
I know. That's yep. And so I'm just gonna start doing that. I'm just gonna go with my instincts, go with your instincts.
Yep.
If you're kind, yeah, and help somebody. I'm
Yeah.
gonna
It
go
was
clean
so
myself.
good to meet you.
So good to meet you. I'm gonna go clean myself up because open and honest conversation. And I just thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
for
you. I really appreciate it. Your questions were amazing. Oh,
you.
good.
Your answers were even better. So thank you. You
And
want?
I'm really sorry about your mom, and I know she would be proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry about your
Yeah.
mom. Yeah, we're in the
Thank you.
club. I jumped into a club we don't want to be part of. It's scary.
Ugh,
I know.
it's terrible. It's terrible.
All right, Katie, we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.